What you measure and report grows exponentially. Today on BCP. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. It's the show that's all about having and living the blue collar business dream. If you have a dream for your business and where you want to take it, we believe you can get there. And Taylor and I want to be a part of your journey towards success. Thanks for tuning in every single week. My name is Carter Harkins, and with me here is Taylor Hill. Hey man.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. You're reading something.
I know, because you stole my thunder a little bit on your notes. So I was like, oh, crap. Now I have to figure out what else I'm going to say.
I stole your thunder? I haven't stolen any thunder yet.
Yeah, I know. But I'm reading your notes, and one of your notes is something that I go to all the time that I'm going to talk about.
I was going to let you take it. But first, before we get into the conversation today... See, guys, we don't plan anything.
We don't plan. No.
We sit down and let the mics, turn on the mics, and we start talking. All right. Before we get into that, though, let me talk about our show sponsor, Closing Commander. Somewhere in your office right now is a pile of open estimates that you've provided to customers, and they've said, I'll get back to you. And in that stack is trapped hundreds of thousands, maybe even potentially millions of dollars that could be in your bank account instead. We want to help you unlock. That's the word.
There you go.
Want to help you unlock the money that's trapped in those open estimates using an automated system for follow-up. It's an email-based system called Closing Commander. This is the way you get more of those dollars turned into actual business in your business, and we are seeing huge results. In fact, we've had some of our beta test users who have done more than 6 figures of additional business in their business in less than 6 months using this. And that's just putting in their past estimates. Yeah. They'll continue to make more as they make this a part of their system and do this with every single estimate when a customer says, I need to get back to you. Automation is the key to making this happen. It's the only way we've seen that gets this job done consistently every single time. If you are a listener of the Blue Collar Proud Show, we have a special offer for you. You get your entire first month for free when you sign up using the link in the show notes or in the special offers section of the app. You can find out more information by going to closingcommander.com. And remember, when you click the link in today's show notes and sign up that way, you'll get your entire first month on us completely free for you. Again, closingcommander.com. Check that out and get signed up and start unlocking that revenue trapped in the stack today. Okay. Now I'm going to steal your thunder. No, yeah. I'm not either.
Now you are going to steal my thunder.
We're talking, this is a part 3 of a 3-part series we've done with Danny Kerr and from Breakthrough Academy. And we got into some great conversation with him. Mm-hmm. We're going to play that here in a little bit. But this particular topic is talking about tracking and being as profitable as you can in your business. Mm-hmm. So last time we talked about hiring the right team. The episode before that, we talked about making sure that you're managing your time. In other words, the game of business is doing the right thing at the right time. Right. Figuring that out is how you win the game. Last time though, we were talking about hiring and some of the leadership challenges. And you mentioned some things after we got off with recording that particular episode. And I thought they were good enough to start with on this particular episode. So why don't you share with me what you were talking about after we stopped rolling the tape?
Well, I think the main thing is when people don't work with you, you're never going to know that. And so some of the feedback that I get back on when I tell guys, hey, you got to be careful about your social media. You know, you kind of have to be neutral, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to tick off, half your customer base. Every once in a while I get somebody that says, well, they're not going to work with me anyway. Or I got plenty of business. I don't need any more business. So, and if you think that that's fine, just understand when somebody, whether it's an employee, a potential employee that you want to hire, or whether it's a potential customer, if they go on in your social and there's something there that they feel is really egregious to them, you're never going to know that they didn't hire you.
Because they don't tell you.
Because they're not
You
gonna
never
tell
hear
you.
somebody call you up and go, "Hi, I just want to let you know I don't want to schedule an appointment with you, and here's why."
Yeah.
They never do that.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so if people start doing that, you really need to.
You probably really got over the line.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that people understand. I don't say that to browbeat anybody. I don't want you guys missing opportunities for great employees and opportunities for business. So it's not me wanting to say, oh, you guys, stink for this. It's, guys, don't do this because you need good people. Don't turn good people away. Just be careful.
Yeah,
that's
good.
really my message.
I thought that was important to add that the motivation for saying what we can sometimes be strong words and perceived as a little bit confrontational really comes from that desire to see people succeed.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so today's topic, and we're talking specifically about tracking and profitability. We'll get into that conversation with Danny. If you're serious about business, and once you've figured out what to do and when to do it, then you've got to figure out how to continue that and perpetuate that and continue to grow it. And that implies that we need a system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want you to tell me, because there are just some contractor business, they don't think it's possible to build a system around what they do. I mean, and I know this because in some way we went through this because as a marketing company, we didn't think that we could build a system because there's this really wide range of customer types, different types of work, all this kind of stuff. And we have contractors that tell us the same thing. But without a system and a standardized way of actually doing things, it's really difficult. So, how do you figure out what you're supposed to do so that you can consistently measure for success? I mean, because you're the one that came to me and said, I think we can do this, because you had figured that out. So tell me a little bit about your thought process and, where we were concerned, because I think that could help other businesses that are maybe having the same challenges.
Yeah, it's something we've thought a lot about just in the goal of any business is predictable revenue. Which means I know based on what we did last year that this year we're going to do X% more in growth. And I can say that with a relative degree of certainty because I've worked hard to create those systems in my business that report to me what I need to know so that I can maximize the potential for growth and chart that growth pretty reliably. And that's the goal of any large business. What oftentimes we see in smaller businesses is they don't know yet what to measure. And so they have trouble figuring out how to make those predictable moves. Add to that things like seasonality in a lot of service contractor businesses. And it becomes almost impossible to predict what you're going to do next year based on this year's numbers.
Right.
So we've worked hard to help businesses mitigate that, change the story to where it's no longer about a guessing game. But we know what we need to measure. We know how to go about measuring it so that we can see that predictability. And all of that implies that we have to put systems in place. And those systems only work if what we're measuring is the same every single time we measure it. So, one of the challenges in our business was around sales. We always thought of sales as this very custom thing that, and in the beginning, because we build websites and we handle marketing for companies and we never know what mix of marketing they would want to explore. And so we would respond to what they wanted to do and build a package around it. So every package was different. The terms for those packages were different in terms of what the offer was and everything else. And pricing was always different based on the package we would put together for them. There was no system for what we offered. And so there was very little system that we could put in place to measure how successful we were in selling what we did because it was a different combination every single time. You're not measuring the same thing from client to client to client.
Right.
And so the predictability of our revenue was awful. You remember those days? It was like a roller coaster ride of
up, down,
revenue
up, down. Yeah.
and feast and famine. And so what we realized was that if we could solidify our offering and offer the same thing to every single client that came along, because we knew this is the bare minimum that they needed in order to succeed, or more than the bare minimum. But this is a package that reliably works for every single client we do it for, and offer that at the same price for every single client that needs it. Now we've got a system, right? Now we've got a way of measuring what we do. And we talk about this in fixed price, when businesses have a book of business and they know it's a fixed price way of doing business, and they're not quoting a job based on how they feel about that customer and looking at the car in the driveway and thinking, I could tack another $800 on this and they wouldn't skip a beat, and that kind of thing. Yeah. But I mean, being consistent about your price book, it works. And what it does ultimately for you is create consistency about what you measure. And when you measure it well, then you start to see repeatability and that predictable nature of the revenue that's coming in, to where, if I sold 12 widgets last month, this month, if I sell 13, then this is going to be my profit on that, or my revenue on that, and and minus my costs and what my profit is going to be. So you've worked toward that systemic or systemized approach to revenue, and that's ultimately what any business really wants to see. Because once you've figured out the formula, I put this much in and I get this much out. Now I can start to maximize that. I can start to fuel the fire of predictability in my business and watch it start to scale. Any business that has grown it successfully, multi-million-dollar businesses, and it doesn't matter if we're talking truck-based businesses that you look at the scale of your business based on how many trucks you have, or if you're looking at your business in terms of the size of the jobs that you do or how many jobs you do a year, whatever your metric is, and it may be different depending on the industry that you're in. You start to learn what it is I need to measure, what it is I need to standardize and create systems and processes that are always followed and always consistent in my business. And once I know what those things are, now I can scale it. Now I can ramp it up. And we see this over and over and over again in every single one of the successful businesses that we've had the privilege of looking into and asking questions about. That's how they did it.
Well, I think the other thing to add to that is, once you have that base of a system, then you can add things to it as needed.
Yes.
And so it's just little add-ons here and there so that you can more customize somebody else's want or need. So that's really important too. But if you have a base system to do that, then you can build onto that. And I think that's real important as well. So I think that's great. Yeah.
It starts with selling. It starts with knowing what your product is and selling it consistently the same way every single time. Because when you do it that way in the beginning, then it becomes easier to do the things like follow-up. Yeah. And now you can create a system for following up that can be automated, like with Closing Commander. Right. And it works all the way through the pipeline. You can automate processes afterwards. It's the same customer experience. It's uniform. It's consistent. We see throughput. There's fewer bumps in the road. Everybody on your team knows exactly how to handle every single customer that walks through the door. And the customers that don't fit that system end up, we screen those out at the front, so that they don't get into our system and break our system and cause us a lot of pain and frustration because they're just not a good fit. Right. So all of those things are parts of the reasons that we're talking about when we talk about systems. But more importantly, the only way you know if a system is working well is if you measure the results of what the output of that system is.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Danny's going to get into that pretty heavily here. So
I think so. So let's cut to the interview with Danny Kerr from Breakthrough Academy. Here, part 3 of the interview that we did with him. This is going to be really good information. So listen up, and then afterwards we'll jump back in and wrap it up. Joining us on the phone again today is Danny Kerr with Breakthrough Academy. Danny, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, talking today about really kind of where the rubber meets the road, right? The whole reason that you're in business is to make money, tracking that, making sure that you're profitable, not just paying attention to how much revenue is coming in, but how much of it you actually get to keep. I think this is going to be a great conversation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got lots to go through. So I think it'll be really good. There's a lot of good little nuggets here.
So what's a typical mindset? What's a typical idea when you start working with a contractor? What are they focused on that's not the right thing to focus on? I'm sure you see some of that.
Yeah, I mean, Generally, most of these guys we work with are doers by heart, right? And what I mean by that is they've seen results and gotten success in their life because they've done things. They've done a lot of things. And they've done things for so long and done so many things for so long that unfortunately everything's actually built on them, right?
Hmm.
So if you think about you're trying to prop up all these sticks and all these other areas of your company, all these pillars, they're usually the one actually holding them all in place. Now they're good doers, and it made them successful in the beginning. They were, doing a ton of stuff to be able to become successful, and they probably make decent money now as a result. But they need to transition from being that doer of all those things to more of a leader of good people and a builder of good systems, and that takes very intentional effort, and that's what we're going to get into.
Awesome. So where does that start?
Well, it actually starts all with financials. Those are kind of like the foundational bedrocks of how decisions can be properly made. Because if you don't understand your numbers, you could go spend a ton of money hiring a project manager because you feel you need one, but you can't actually afford one, right? Or you could be all excited about this new marketing campaign that could get you all these leads, but if you don't actually understand how much money you spend per marketing campaign and what your ROI is per lead source, you could blow a ton of money on the wrong marketing campaign just on a feeling, right? So really understanding your financials at a very deep level really will help you make better decisions as the company grows and performs for you, because you can only guess so much before you guess 7 times the wrong way and it doesn't even become worth pursuing anymore. But when you're like, you know what, I know we were at 1.5 million last year at a 32% gross profit margin. We spent $600,000 on overhead and we made X amount of dollars in net profit, and you can see every line item of how much you've spent in each area. You can start to ask yourself, what things were worth it? What things weren't? Why was our gross profit margin at 32%? Wonder how we get it to 35%, right? And the more you understand how every little percentage makes a difference, the more control you can start to have. Because I think for a lot of people, what they don't realize, let's say you're running $1 million business. What's 1% of $1 million? It's 10 grand. It's a lot of money. But 1% lost on a job site due to, a missed material order or the guy's going over budget a little bit, it happens every day. But yet people don't put that level of importance on it. I always say to people, like, you're running a $1 or $2 million a year business and your margins are off by 2 or 3%. I'm like, that's almost an entire administrative role that you could have in your company and free up half of your time.
So you're saying pay attention to the little things.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the details and really use those details to be able to project next year too, right? Okay, we did 1.5 million last year. Let's try and grow for 2. We had a 32% margin last year. Let's maybe try and get it to 35%. Let's work on labor and materials coming down by a couple of percent each. And then let's start tracking that. So every single job that you go do, see how you do performance-wise. Are you at 35% margin on that job, or are you at a 30% or 40%? And why did that happen? And how do you really start to make change as you see it job by job versus at the end of the year when your accountant gives you your books and you're like, crap, well, better luck next year. Why not do that every single job and make slight adjustments every time?
So talk to the guy that just isn't into the numbers. I mean, naturally, we do have some people that we work with.
I'm one
that
of them.
Really struggle with. Yeah, Carter's one of them, but he's got me. But they struggle with figuring out what a P&L means and what a balance sheet is, overall. And to get even more detailed in the per job is just like ad nauseum for them. So, what can those guys do? Because they care, they just have a tough time.
So this is good for everyone to know. I'm dyslexic, actually. So I can't read or write very well at all. I'm a mess.
No, I get
it. But it, for all intents and purposes, like I have amazing people around me, right? So I have a support team that really is the yin to my yang, I guess you would say. My business partner Igor is a numbers guru. He's a systems guru. My assistant Caitlin, who's been with us, who's one of the first staff we ever hired, is literally my right hand lady. Like everything I do that is administrative wise or numbers wise or detail oriented, she takes care of. So I can be in my element, she can be in her element, but yet the business still gets what it needs, which is a balance of the two.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I tell people. You have to have somebody in your business that can help you with that part of your business, or you're going to be lost.
Yeah, we have, we'll talk about Breakthrough Academy overall, but we have a whole program that essentially helps with that side of things because most people aren't naturally great at it. And even if they do know a little bit of it, they're guessing and testing how to do it all properly. Whereas we lay out all the systems for everybody. We have all the templates pre-drawn up. We have a coach that coaches you through how to get the stuff filled up properly. We'll work with your administrative assistant to get the stuff in. And slowly you can start to see, see through the trees a little bit. But I wouldn't encourage anyone just to bullheadedly just go figure it out yourself if you're naturally not great at it, because it'll just zap all your energy.
Yeah.
Do what you're great at and find good support people or systems to help you do the things you're not great at. That's entrepreneurship.
So what do you do for the business owner that kind of uses his business as a personal
Bank account.
Yeah, to pull money from periodically to, you know, fix his house or do this or do that, and so he never really has a clear understanding what his business really is because he keeps robbing from it.
Yeah. Here's the thing. So there's a couple of ways to think about this. When you're small, so when I mean small, I mean 200K, maybe 500K a year. You've got a couple staff, but really it's just you kind of doing your thing, and you're making enough money to have the boat you want, pay the mortgage down, and just kind of, you know, live life the way you want. That's fine. Like if that's your version of business, totally cool. And you know what? I've some friends that's how they operate, and they're happy as hell. In fact, that's sometimes I look at them and be like, man, you have a ton of freedom in what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that level where it's like, that's okay. You know, maybe not in the government's eyes, depending on how you're doing things, it might not be totally okay, but from a business perspective, that's all good. And don't try and grow if you don't feel like you need to. Right. But if you've also got this bug inside of you, this little entrepreneurial bug that's nagging at you saying like, what could you do? What are you capable of? Where do you want to take this thing big picture? And you've got a big idea, and you're still trying to run things with that like nonchalant, like I just take from my account, I don't really measure things too much. You're heading for bankruptcy. Because if you don't understand how to properly strategically manage your financials while you grow a business, add overhead, add people, like you will eventually just your margins will get smaller and smaller and smaller, and the economy could turn, something could happen quicker than you can react to it, and you'll be the one stuck in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree.
So in your program and as you talk with contractors, what are some of the numbers that you really want them to start focusing on? What are the ones that make the needle move, and if you're not tracking them, can get you in trouble?
Sure. There's a lot of them. Just for the sake of this podcast, I would say that the most important one that I've seen that is kind of like almost like the heartbeat of your whole company, it's like the pulse to check at all times, is your gross profit margins. So that's the margins that you make off the job after. So you get paid from the customer. It's after you spent on materials, labor, and subs. Whatever's left for you after that, that's your gross profit margin. And certain industries, you want to be at a certain rate. So everyone's a little different what the rate should be. But, you know, let's say builders, custom home builders should be between, 15 and 20%, maybe 25% at the high end. Renovators should be between, let's say 20 and 30%. Painters, landscapers, people in kind of medium average job size businesses should be between 30 and 45% roughly. Movers, junk removal people in window cleaning, things like that should be in the 45 to 55, sometimes 60% range. And roughly the bigger your average job size is, the lower your gross profit margins are, because there's less overhead to service that. And the smaller your average job size is, so you're doing a bunch of 6 jobs a day, the more overhead you have to service that, because you have to have so much organization and trucks and people moving all the time. And so you need a higher margin. And as you scale, if you don't have the right gross profit margin and you're unprofitable overall, because maybe you're a painter and you make 30% off the job, but as you grow, you're going to add, say, up to 30% of costs just to pay for overhead. Well, then you're net negative, or you're net zero for the end of the year. So you really need to understand what your gross profit margin is. And you can chat with us if you want to know kind of what industry standard is for your specific industry. But ultimately, you want to say, what's standard and what am I at? Because if I'm not good enough right now, I shouldn't grow. I got to get it healthier before I go after growth.
Well, I think that one nugget right there is going to absolutely open some eyes right now. People listening going, oh, no wonder
Yeah.
I'm in pain. I had no idea that's what my gross margin should be. So that's great information, Danny.
Cool.
So how do you track these things? I mean, how do you start going through the process of doing that?
So the nice thing is we're gonna give a little download to help you guys with this. But essentially, we have something called a job cost card that we have everybody use. So it's an Excel sheet that essentially you type in the job revenue, you type in under each category the job costs. So there's a category for material, a category for labor, a category for subs, a category for other as well. You type in how much each section costs you, and then you can see your margin pop out. And every time you put in a new job, it adds up at the top your net average for all the jobs combined. So you can see an individual job, how it's doing, but you can also see the overall view of how things are performing. And so we usually set a budget for the year, and then we have an actuals right next to it. So we can always see if your labor's hitting on budget for percentages or below or above. And ultimately it allows people to really be laser focused on, why did that job come in 3% over on labor? Why did that job come in, 2% down on materials? And start understanding job by job. You can change the way you quote, you can change the way you drive your guys. And ultimately too, the best thing, you can actually give some of these numbers to your project manager and make him or her in charge of it so that they can own it and their bonuses can be based on it as well.
Yeah. And I think that's really a good way to do it, because anytime that you can give the people that work for you some autonomy in that way, where they are actually responsible for numbers coming in, it just creates buy-in.
Ownership. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a brilliant way to do it. So tell me a little bit about how do you set your sales and production specifics for the people involved in these companies?
Sure. So there's a formula to all of this, but you start with your revenue. So you say, okay, I'm going for $1 million worth of revenue. You then need to know, to be able to sell enough jobs to be able to get there, you need to know what your average job size is. And everyone always fights me on this, and they always say, oh, my average job size is all over the map. I've got some jobs at $10,000 and some jobs at $200. And I'm like, cool, I get it. But how many jobs did you do last year? Let's count the invoices. And how much revenue did you do? Divide that number into the revenue, and you're going to get what's called an average job size. It's just a number. And with that, you can then start to project how much jobs you need to book, right? So $1 million at a $2,000 average job size. What would that be? That would be, I think it's 500 jobs you need to do. So okay, I need to book 500 jobs. And then you need to know your sales ratio or your closing ratio. So let's just say, for example's sake, it's 50%. So if I need to book, 500 jobs, and I have a 50% closing ratio, I need to do 1,000 estimates.
1,000 estimates. That's it.
Then there's one other number we look at too, which is called lead slippage. That's how many leads get quoted versus how many came in. So if you have a 10% lead slippage, so 10% of your leads don't actually ever get quoted, maybe they're not right fit, maybe they just don't show up, whatever it is, then you need to do 1,100 leads. So I need to get 1,100 leads to do 500 to do 1,000 quotes, to book 500 jobs, to roughly get to my $1 million in revenue. And again, I just threw those numbers out based on a $2,000 average job size. Some people have a $10,000 average job size. Some people have a $150,000 average job size doing renos. So for sales, to be able to break those numbers down accordingly, that's the first step. Then we've also got a tracker we're going to send to everybody that'll help break it down by season. So you can see quarter by quarter where you should be, and even week by week where you should be. And it tells you exactly how many leads you need per week, estimates per week, jobs per week, and dollars per week, and cumulatively where you should be at any point in the year. And you can adjust for seasonality as well. So you can have a lower January and then a really crazy May, June, July, August, and it'll help you see if you're ahead or behind. When you actually track these numbers weekly and you have your sales teams out, or even yourself just tracking how much you're doing every single week, you get a year of data. You can now see and project next year. You can have a whole year of data where you can say, hey, based on that, what's next year going to be? And you can get planned out way ahead of time.
Just by virtue of the fact of measuring, you're actually starting to increase the chances and the odds of you hitting those goals or even surpassing those goals. And business owners oftentimes say, it doesn't really matter if I track or not. It's the same work to get there, whether I know exactly what I'm trying to hit or not. I've still got to work hard. So why not just work hard and, leave the rest to, it just takes time. I don't need to track all that stuff. There really is a difference though when you do track, isn't there?
There is. Here's a good example of that. You know where to put that effort, right? So let's say, you're midway through the year, you're trying to hit $1 million and you're at $350,000. You're like, man, well, I know the problem. I got to book more work. We got to do more estimates. We got to do more estimates. But maybe you look at everything and you realize, what, we are actually doing the same amount of estimates as we did last year. The problem is our average job size is half of what we thought it was going to be. Interesting. So maybe we shouldn't try and do more estimates. Maybe we should move, to a different area where there's bigger homes or there's more money or whatever it is, and try and get our average job size up. And so you can suddenly start to see things at a much more HD level and allocate your resources in a way that you may not have, and make different decisions.
What's really interesting about tracking, we talked before about tracking time, which was the first episode that we did with you. And this is talking about tracking your numbers. And it's amazing to me. It's the same thing. We have a marketing company, an online marketing company. We work with a lot of blue collar guys, about almost 200, a little bit under 200 people now. But the honest truth is, getting them to track their marketing is the same, because it all has to do with what lever do you push to get that works, and what do you not do more of that doesn't work. And if you're not tracking and watching all that, you don't know.
Yeah.
And it really is the same, whether you're marketing, whether it's you've got to track everything in your business, basically.
Yeah, I always say to people, like both for life and for business, like we are all a product of the decisions we make. I like a lot of people sometimes like to think they're a product of what's happened to them in life. Be like, oh, but all these things happened to me, so that's why I am the way I am, or all these things happened to my business, and that's the way it is what it is. They look externally. But truthfully, if you really look at that, like any challenge or anything that comes good or bad in life, you ultimately have a decision as to how to take it. And I'm a firm believer that we as people are product not of what's happened to us, but of the decisions we've made through those times.
You bet.
And same with our business. Our business is a product of the decisions we've made through all of these ups and downs and different challenges and things that come our way. And if you're trying to make decisions just based on a whim or a gut or a feeling, that's great. That's half the equation. I absolutely think there's value to that, but that's only half the equation. The other half is the facts. And I've always tried to merely make decisions based on my head and my heart, and have both of them involved in the final product.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's an old adage, are you wagging the dog wagging the tail, or is the tail wagging the dog, And that's kind of the way I look at it. If you're making really good decisions based on the numbers, then you're wagging your own tail, and you're making those decisions, and you're not letting just things that happen arbitrarily just move you around like a pawn, because we're not pawns. We have the ability to make good decisions and make those decisions to get us anywhere we want to go in life or business.
And we've heard it's frequent to hear people, when the economy is bad and there's a recession, they blame the economy for the condition their business is in. But when it's a booming economy and everything's going great, they're quick to say, well, I just, I'm a smart businessman and I took advantage of, the market opportunity, and so it's because I'm really good.
Yeah, like things change, right? Everything changes in life, and it's just about being mature about that. I mean, I sometimes see entrepreneurs too. They get really bold, right? They're like, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend all this money. I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to do it," and they're excited, and I'm excited for them too. But I'm also like, there's a difference between blind risk and educated risk.
Yes,
and that is the differentiator, I would say, long term, between who makes it and who doesn't.
That's good. Yeah, so, okay, you've got these numbers that you're tracking, and some numbers are important for some job roles, and other numbers aren't important for those people, and on down the line. So we've got these numbers that we want to track. You can sort of start to build a structure in your business that everybody is now tasked with. This is the number that you're managing. Yes. And that sort of builds some structure into your business. Talk about that.
Okay, so this is where it all counts, because part of it is so that you can scale your business and make smart decisions, but the bigger part is so that you can actually relinquish control and put your people in control of the company. And if you've ever wondered why people don't own the business like you do, and you're like, man, they just don't care like I do, it's because you've never given them enough autonomy or control to make those decisions in an informed way.
That's important.
If you don't know where you're going as a company, how are your people ever going to know?
Yep.
Ultimately, it's speed of the leader, right? So what we do with all of our students that we work with is we build the budget, we build the sales plan. We actually also build a production plan, so we can see how many hours every week need to be produced and how many dollars need to be invoiced. So we cover all areas of the company. And then we start to delegate these things, these numbers, out to the key people in your company. So maybe your administrative assistant, we're tracking AR, and we want to, on the cash flow plan, make sure AR never slips below 2%. So that becomes on their employment agreement something, a deliverable, something called the deliverable, where they have to deliver on the fact that AR will never slip below 2% net 30 days. Let's say your operations manager needs to hit a 40% margin for you to make money this year, and you need to do it at 1.25 million. Well, that means that we might even up his goal a little bit. He needs to hit in his employment agreement 1.4 million at a 43% margin. Let's also say we want to maintain quality and we want to get referrals. He also needs to deliver quality at a 9 out of 10 rating that's written out by the customer. So we're trying to hold everyone to a number. And usually the numbers I like to hold people to are quality, volume, and profit numbers. And the mix of those three hold everybody in check. So my ops guys are focused on revenue and profit margins and overall quality rating cards being filled out. My field guys, just down like on the day-to-day field, are maybe focused on hours produced and percent under the budgeted hours that were given to them, and again, quality. My sales guys would be focused on sales numbers, so number of revenue booked, and maybe a number of quotes done, or maybe even leads generated. And everybody has a number that's given to them that's based off the master plan. And then it's baked into their job agreements. Their employment agreement has it written in the top, and then their employment agreement literally is built off of those numbers. So if you're in charge of producing at 43% margin, here's all the things you need to do to bring in quality jobs on budget. And then all the list of day-to-day tasks they're in charge of come out of that. So everything's connected to a number.
How do you manage that with subs? I mean, do you have a similar agreement with them?
You have, yeah. So you still have a pretty robust agreement. Your deliverables might be less numerical. So it could be things like all work completed on contract, on schedule, invoices match approvals, and invoices in within 15 days, just to help you with costs, right? But still, they have something that they're held accountable to that they need to deliver to you at a certain time period to ensure that you can operate effectively.
That's great stuff. I'm looking at the time. We've got to end it, but this can be transformative if you catch a vision for what this can do in your business. I know you have something you want to provide to people, and you already teased it a little bit, and I think it's going to be something that's pretty power-packed. So tell people how they can get it.
Sure. So this is probably, of all the things we've given away so far, this is the most powerful one. I think our team, between initial creation and revision, has spent the last 4 years making this thing the most robust little Excel file you'll ever use for your trades business. And it'll essentially help you build a budget, track job cost cards so you can see how much profit you're making off of the jobs, help you build a production, a sales plan, and track if your people are on pace or on or off pace as far as week-to-week goals go, and have a dashboard where you can literally just look at the whole dashboard and see goal versus actual, where you're at any given time. So it's a very well done, well coded, robust form. So if you want something like that to help you track your business, you go to one of our websites here, btacademy.com/BCP. So BT Academy stands for breakthrough. So BT and then academy.com. Then /BCP stands for blue collar proud. So BCP. I think that'll be in the show notes as well. Just make sure you type in code TIME08. So TIME 08, and that'll make sure we get you the right templates.
Danny,
sorry, that's the wrong one.
I believe it's
That's from the other
08,
one.
Right?
Profit 08. Yeah, Profit 08. So there's another code if you want some more stuff, but the one that you want from this one we just talked about is Profit 08, and that way we know which ones to send you. Awesome.
Man, you've provided such value over the past 3 episodes. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness, the way that you've answered the questions, and the material that you've presented. I'd love to reach back out to you at some point and have you back on. I know our listeners would want that as well.
Sure thing. No, it's been awesome having you or being here.
Awesome. Danny Kerr from Breakthrough Academy, everyone.
Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, you got it.
So Danny said it better than we did, but it's that same,
Yeah.
that drum that it's important to track. It's important to know your numbers. It's important to understand that profitability doesn't just accidentally happen.
I think in some cases, profitability does accidentally happen, but it doesn't accidentally happen year end over year.
Yeah.
If it does in the beginning, because I know
it's not
some
repeatable.
Yeah, I know some companies that have just started within the first 2 years. They're like, "Wow, this is awesome." They can't sustain it.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what they did.
Right. Exactly.
You don't know what they did. Yeah.
I hit the bullseye, but I don't know how I hit it. I don't know if I could ever hit it again.
It's like when I was a kid, I made a hole-in-one in golf. I shanked it the entire time, but it went in the cup. It counted, you know? So it's like, wasn't a pretty shot. I could never duplicate that again, but it went in the hole.
But I got lucky.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Yeah. So, Taylor, you talk a lot about the necessary ingredient in business of measuring and tracking. And I want you to talk about how businesses can track what they need to track and what the best way for doing that is.
Well, there's no one system that's the best way of doing it. I mean, it depends on what your budget is, some software can do some things and some can't. Some people have software that do it. They also ask manually to do it. I mean, there's all these different ways to do this. But here's the thing I want to talk about is Pearson's law. All right. What is measured improves. So if you're measuring anything, it will improve. What is measured and reported improves exponentially. This is why it's so important to write things down. So whatever methodology you use, you need to write it down.
Yeah.
It needs to be your accounting software, balance sheets, P&Ls, all that kind of stuff. You know, like what Danny said, talking about your profitability. You need to know what your profits are. You need to know what your expenses are. You need to know what your payroll is. You need to know what your average job is. I mean, these are all things that you need to know and have written down. So you don't have to have it to memory, but you have written down. If somebody asks you, what is your average job? And you go, well, you know, it's somewhere around $300. That's not good enough. You need to know that.
Yeah.
And if
$318. You should have an answer.
Yeah, you should have an answer. And it's like, hold on just a minute. Let me look that up. I can give you that. And it's $318, you know, whatever it is. That's the thing that your brain takes in. And that when you have goals, your brain is a goal-achieving machine. Once you see 318, if you say, you know, I want that to go up next year by $100, I want every one of my average jobs to be 418 next year. It's amazing what happens when you decide that. It's like your brain goes into overdrive. And the more you look at that, 318, 418, what your goal is, you want 418, it's amazing how many times you hit it.
Yeah. Or exceed it.
Yeah, but you have to write stuff down.
When you know the precise
track.
number, your brain starts to say, well, why is it 318?
Yeah.
Why is that number what it is? And so you start reverse engineering. It's because every
exactly
time we go
right.
out, we do this service and we usually upsell this. But if I'm going to hit 418, then what could I do to not do the typical thing that we normally do, but what can I do to increase that? What are the ways of getting to that goal? Now you start making changes in behavior, changes in the actions and training and everything else.
Changes in training, changes in your system.
Right.
All those things happened. But it will not happen until you know what the answer is.
Until you measure.
Yeah, you got to measure. You know, it's like losing weight, okay? So if I just go, I'm going to go on a diet, and I just start going on a diet, and somebody says, wow, you're looking good. How many pounds have you lost? I don't know. Well, I go to the doctor, and the doctor says, looks like you've lost some weight. You know, are you trying? Well, yeah, how many pounds have you lost? I don't know. You don't know. But if you're actively measuring and tracking and say, I'm going to get to X amount of pounds, then all of a sudden you have a goal. And your brain says, you know, that donut's probably not going to be the best thing for you to eat if you want to lose 2 pounds this week. It just puts everything at the forefront of your mind. So if you understand that that's just the way our brains work,
Yep.
then you can actually set yourself up to really achieve some remarkable things.
So to the question then of how do we measure, what are the best ways of tracking anything that we want to track? There are systems, and in contractor businesses, many systems already, I mean, they can, we talk with people all the time that know exactly what to track in a particular industry. Like, okay, you're in that industry, then here are your KPIs, your key performance indicators that let you know exactly whether or not you're performing at optimal, There are other businesses that because they're hybrids between industries or they combine services or they're very customized, a lot of custom contractors that do remodels and things like that. It's very much design build. It's a little bit different what you're measuring, and you have to measure on a per job basis for profitability to be safeguarded, and that's so much about getting it right at the beginning.
Yes.
When you estimate
materials, all that, waste, all that has to be factored in, and it really does depend on what kind of business you have. I mean, what we track here as a marketing company is totally different. But what I'm saying is there's all kinds of software. You have to figure that out.
I was going to ask, because you can track all of that on paper and do pretty well for a while, but at some point it becomes useful to have that data going way back to in a computer format where a spreadsheet or whatever, to where you can slice and dice it a little bit more and get more granular or see a bigger picture.
Yeah, and it's amazing what you can track just in QuickBooks. I mean, and most people do their software in QuickBooks. there's a lot of things, but you have to have somebody help you get that set
Set
up
it up
right.
in the beginning.
Yeah. And so, and there's some field service software that does some amazing types of tracking. There's CRMs. There's all kinds of different software out there. So I don't know in any particular business outside of our own business, what you need to look at. I will say two things. Some of the CRMs that I've seen are so complex and complicated that to get in there and figure it all out is so overwhelming to some companies that it's much better to take what I call a piecemeal approach, is to get something that you know is going to work for your financials, get something that you know is going to work, for your sales, follow up, that kind of thing. And that's okay, because there's some of the CRMs are so expensive and they're so bloated, it's very, very difficult to run them.
Yeah.
And that's not me talking. That's just clients that have tried different things and have gone, oh my gosh, I can't do this. So you have to do whatever is comfortable for you. The key is measure it and write it down, even if it's on just paper.
And the consistency of that measurement matters.
Yes.
If you're only measuring 80% of what you do, then you're only going to get a result back.
Yeah. So and it's the consistency and the fact that you're measuring and writing it down, I think, is far more important than what software it is.
I agree.
That's my personal opinion. And then if you need recommendations for software, I would go to associations. I would, call other people in your field. If you're uncomfortable calling people in your city, then find some people outside, in different states or whatever, and find out what they're using. Get in a Facebook group or LinkedIn group or something like that and ask the question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what those groups are for. And they can help you find a software solution that fits your budget. It kind of helps you.
I've recommended field management software for years to clients, and have over the years have vetted, I think, close to 100, maybe even more by now, different field service software solutions. We've recommended on the show. House Call Pro is a great one for home service businesses, but there's a lot of other ones out there too. The basic rule of thumb that I've decided to follow is the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
If you look at software and you immediately see you can put to use 80% of the software's features in your business, do it. I mean, that's a great deal. Too many times, though, we look at it and we see, wow, look at all the stuff it'll do, but I'll probably only use 20% and not use 80. So don't do 20-80, do 80-20.
Well, and the other thing is we've got tons of clients that use the same type of software. I mean, whether it's Service Titan, whether it's Service CEO, whether it's House Call Pro, and what one guy thinks is the most amazing thing in the world, and they're using that part of the software, the other three people don't like that part at all. They use a totally different. Yeah. I mean, it's just, so it's really difficult when you get into those type of things to recommend anything, because it's relative to how you run your business, what's important to you, all those.
But what you measure matters.
But what you
and
measure
you can definitely
matters.
measure the wrong things and get the wrong idea about why you're successful or not. So making sure that you understand what you should be measuring is one of the keys of getting the system set up right from the beginning. And that sometimes means you get an expert involved, and that could be a CPA. It could be it could be a business expert in your field that knows what those metrics need to be. That's a salesperson or a sales expert who can set up those sales systems to make sure that your employees are automatically measuring those things they need to measure, so you see the success of what you're building, and in quantitative ways. I mean, the numbers, because ultimately you want numbers that aren't telling you the wrong story.
That is correct, because you can take KPIs from one industry and try to retrofit them in yours, and it's not going to be the same. So you have to be very, very careful about that, because you need to make sure you get the KPIs in your industry. And I'll even go one step further. Make sure that if you're pulling KPIs from one industry into you and you do the same thing, make sure you really do the same things. Because I've seen some things in waste numbers, especially for waste in some industries that aren't like 100% compatible, that don't transfer over. So you really do need to be careful. And if you're measuring, you can really figure that out and adjust those KPIs in what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be careful with that. But I'm always hesitant to give, one solution that'll take care of everybody, because I just think there's just not one.
Even
there's
within the same
many.
industry, there's such variation.
Yeah. So you do have to look at some and just pick the best you can.
I think it's good. Well, this has been a great 3-part series, and we would just say thanks so much to Danny for bringing it. Check out Breakthrough Academy, links in the show notes, good stuff there. And just for some announcements to wrap up, I just want to make sure that everybody knows about our book, Blue Collar Proud, 10 Principles for Building a Kick-Ass Business You Love. It's available in paperback and Kindle, both available at Amazon.com. Also, don't forget, you can download our show app. It's the BCP Show app. It's free, available in the Apple App Store or from Google Play. What else? Make sure that you check out Closing Commander. Get your first month free by using the link in today's show notes. Closing Commander is going to help you reduce the stack to nothing and put all of the trapped revenue in that stack into your business, into your bank account. Most of all, just come hang out with us over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. Always good conversations going on over there. I found some interesting videos, like retro videos.
Yeah, I saw those. They were cool.
Like a welding training video I thought was pretty cool, and a documentary on the guys who were stringing up power back in the 60s all across the British Isles. That was an interesting little clip too. So check that out and join us over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. You can also find out about all the other places where you can connect with us by going to our website, bcpshow.com/connect. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. As always, Taylor and I want to thank you so much for listening every single week. And thanks to the people that make this show happen every week. Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders, our community manager. Until next time, remember, it takes the same blood, sweat, and tears to build a business, whether you hate it or not. Same energy goes into it, so why not do it the Blue Collar Proud way? We'll see you next time right here on the Blue Collar Proud Show. Bye, everybody.
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.